Hi guys, so in this particular video, I am going to show you how you can use aggregate functions for your analysis in Excel. So this video will put you through how to use aggregate functions for your analysis in Excel. So I already have my data set here. This is an e-commerce data showing the order of the items ordered from a particular website or store. So here we have the order date, we have the customer names, we have the region, we have the product name, we have the category, we have quantity of items ordered, we have the unit price for each product, we have the discount given on each product, we have the total revenue for the products, we have the profit made on each product and the shipping mode. So some of these are actually not needed for this analysis, but I'm just going to leave them and we'll work on the aggregate functions. Now, starting with sum, these are some of the aggregate functions I'm going to talk about. We have the sum if, sum ifs, average, average ifs, the count, the count a, the count if, the count ifs, the max ifs, the mean and the mean ifs. So these are some of the aggregate functions I'm going to talk about in this video. Now let's get started. For sum means having to add some things together. So for sum, we just look at the sum of the total revenue for this for all the products. So we have about how many products here? Okay, we have over 1,000 products here. Yeah, we have 1,000 products here. We have 1,000 products here. So to calculate, imagine having to calculate the sum of this one by one. It doesn't make any sense. So this is why this Excel aggregate functions, they make our work easier as data analysts. Now, for the sum, all we just have to do is use the sum functions equals to sum, then your bracket. So I'm going to calculate the total revenue for all these 1,000 products that we have here. So I'm going to look at the sum of all these products. So I'll use a shortcut to take me down to the last revenue for the last product. So I'm going to use the shift control and the arrow down button, which will automatically take from the first item I selected to the very last item on the list. So I don't have to keep scrolling down in order to select the last item. So I'm going to use my shift control and the arrow down, then enter. So this sum now will show me the total sum of all the items. So we have 90,202.61 dollar, which is the total revenue for each of the for the all the items. Now to the next one, which is the sum if. Sum if we are calculating the sum of the products, sum based on criteria. It could be that we want to look at maybe the sum of only the electronics or the sum of the beauty category. It could be the sum of all the items in the home category. So now we have a criteria which we are using to get all the sum. Okay, let's say for instance I want to look at let's say for instance I want to see all the categories of items that we have here. So I'm going to use a text function for this. In case you don't know about text functions, I already made a video on text functions, and it's also in my channel. You can just check my channel and follow up with text functions. So I'm going to use the text functions to see all the category of the items that we have here. So we have 1000, so you don't expect to start writing them out one by one. So with this text function, I can easily get all the categories, unique categories for my orders. So I'm going to use a text function to get them. So now for all these 1000 items that we have here, we only have they all fall in just five categories. All these 1000 items that are being sold here, they only fall in five categories. Now, for the sum if, let's say we want to look at the total sales of the items in the electronics category. We're also going to look at the one in the beauty category. We're also going to look at the home category, clothing category, and lastly, the sports category. So at the end of the day, by the time we do the summation of all of this using the sum function, we should arrive at this exact figure. Now, the sum if is calculated based on one criteria. Based on what? One criteria. And the criteria here is at this. We are looking at how many or what is the total revenue that we generated from the electronics category. So now let's get to it. Equals to sum if. So the range, looking at this, you will see that we have range, we have criteria, and we have the sum range. So the range here, in this case, is a range from which is a range from which our criteria will be taken from. Now, these are our criteria here. This is our criteria here. And so what will be the range? The range will be in this category. So the range will be this category. And the criteria here are this electronics beauty, which we already have them written out here. And the sum range is where we want to get our answer from, which will be our total revenue. Total revenue. Now, let's get started. Now, I'm going to select my range and I will select everything using my shift control and down arrow key, then comma. So the criteria now, is this select. So I'm going to select each of these. So I'll do them one after the other. So the criteria for this case, for this first one is the electronics, right? Then comma. So what is our sum range? Like I explained earlier, the sum range is where we want to get our answers from. Now, the sum range will be the total revenue in general. So I'm just going to select all the revenue. So Control Shift and arrow down to select everything, then enter. So now, okay, I didn't select the EGS, I didn't select this electrons, I selected an empty cell. So I'm just going to select the cell in which we have the electronics, so to be this. So enter. So this is telling me that in this electronics category, we made $27,669.23. Now let's do the same for the beauty category. So equals to sum if. So the range will be our category, comma, not dot, comma. What is the criteria here? The criteria here is the criteria here, sorry, the criteria here is the next one we have on the line here, which is a beauty. So I can select my beauty from this text functions I use to get the unique category, and at the same time I can select it from here, which is my next criteria. Then the so the next one is the sum range, which is the total revenue. So I'm just going to select everything down, then enter. So we should have the total revenue for the beauty category. So I can just do for the home category. So equals to sum if the range, the category we are selecting. What is the next one? The next The next is a home category. Then the sum range is a total revenue that we have here. Then enter. So I'm going to do this for the clothing category as well. So equals to sum if the range is a category here, comma, then the criteria is the home, is the clothing. So I can select it from here or just pick it from here. So let's just pick it from here. Then the sum range is the total revenue that we have here. Then enter. Now for the sport category, I'm just going to do the same thing as well. So equals to sum if the range is the electronics here, is the category here. So the next category we want to work on now is the sports. So let me just pick it from here, comma. Then the sum range is the sum of our total revenue, then enter. So this sum if helps us to, so this is telling that there's an error somewhere. So F10 here, okay, just ignore that. So for the sports category, so this we are getting this error here because we selected this beauty from here, and this same one, this clothing, we picked them from here. So it doesn't actually matter. So Excel is thinking that we just use pick my selections from here. So whether you're picking from here or you have them all the categories written out and just using them as a reference here, just like what I did here, it's still the same thing now. For us to see if we are going to get the total sum, which should be the same as this. So let us sum this up. So I'm just going to write the total here. Then the sum of everything that we have here, sum of this down to this, it should arrive at this $90,000. Yeah, can you see? So this is a work of sum if. So you can get the sum using a single criteria. Now for sum ifs, it is just like the sum if, but based on multiple criterias. Based on what? Multiple criterias. So let's say for instance, I want to get the sales of let's say okay, let me use the text function again, and we are going to look at the sales of electronics in the regions, in each of the regions. So by the time we calculate the total for each region, we should get this. So for this sum if, we are using sum ifs rather based on multiple criteria, unlike the sum if, which can just be just a single criteria. The sum ifs allows us to calculate the sum based on multiple criteria. Now, in this case, I'll be using two criteria, which is the category and also the region. So now I have all the categories here. So let me just look for the region, for electronics and the region. So let me use a text function. Let me use my text function to get all my regions here to see how many regions that we have here. So in case you don't understand these text functions, I already made a video on text functions and you'll see them in my channel where you can learn about text function. Now, for this category, for this region, we have the west, central, north, east, and south. So I want to look at the sales of electronics, the sales of electronics in each of this region, and by the time I sum them up, we should arrive at this figure. So now let's get to it. For the sum ifs, so this is double I. So we are using it based on multiple criteria. I'm just using the electronics and the regions here. So now for this, we have to select where we want to pick our answer from, which is a sum range, which would be our total revenue here. Unlike the sum if where we first selected the range, the criteria, and the sum range comes last. But for some ifs, you have to select the sum range first, then the criteria 1 range, then the criteria 1, then criteria 2 range, then the criteria 2. If you have a third criteria, you can select the criteria 3 range and the third criteria. So let's do it to understand better when we start doing it. So I'm going to select my sum range, which should be my total revenue. So I'll select everything. Then the first criteria I want to work on here is the what is the category. So criteria one range will be our category, then comma our criteria 1 is what electronics. So I'm using electronics. So I want to get the total sales of electronics made in the west, in the central, in the north, east, and south. So I'm using my region and I'm getting my sum based on the category and the region. Based on the category and the region. So I've selected my sum range here, and this is my criteria range 1, which is a category. Now what I'm looking for is electronics. So how much is sold in this electronic next category in each of this region. Now for criteria 2, so I've selected sum range, criteria 1 range, and criteria 1. Now my criteria 2 is the region here. So I need to select the range, which should be the range of everything here, right? Comma. Then the criteria 2 range at this west central that we have here. So I'll just pick west, right? Then enter. So this is telling me that in the West, we only sold $4,047, then 46 cents, right? So in the central, let's do for the central. I could just automate this. And maybe just automate this, and do it for the rest. But for the sake of those that are new to this, so let's just do it one after the other, just like the way we did the sum if here. Now for the central equals to the sum ifs. So the sum range will be our total revenue here, comma. What is our criteria range 1? Criteria range 1 is the category criteria here, comma. Then the criteria range is the electronics, right? So I can pick my electronics, I can pick this. So I'm only using this as a reference. So in case you are referencing something like this, you're using like a reference, just like I have here, you should be very careful. You have to make sure that you type it exactly the way it was, because Excel is very, very case sensitive. If I have small letter E here in the electronics, like the first letter, which should be small letter E, I'm not going to get the right. I'm going to get an error because Excel is case sensitive. So you need to make sure that you have it exactly the way it is. So I'm using this reference, so I don't have to keep clicking here. I can as well pick my criteria here, but as a data analyst, it is easier when you are referencing. So should in case you want to change, maybe after doing for electronics, I want to do for beauty. So I'll make an example now. So let's keep using this one here. So let's keep using this one here. Now so where we selected the criteria range, the criteria 1, and the criteria. Now for criteria 2, which should be our region. I'm just going to select this straight down here to the last one, then comma. So what is the next region we are working with? We're working with the central. We'll select the central, then enter. So we saw this in the central, right? Yes, then this in the central, right? So for the north, let's do the same for the north. Sum gives the sum range is the total revenue, comma. The criteria range 1 is the what? The category. So select the category, comma. Then the criteria 1 is the electronics. So the criteria range 2 is the what? The regions we are working with, comma. And the next region we are working with is what? I think the central. So I'm just going to go to the central and pick the north. I'm going to pick my north here, then enter. So we saw this in the north. So for the east, let's do the same thing. Sum ifs. Then the sum range should be the total revenue, comma. Then the criteria range 1 is our what? Is our electronics category, comma. Then our criteria is what? Our criteria 1 is the what? The electronics that we have here, comma. Criteria range 2 is the region, comma. And the criteria 2 is what? The next region we have here, which is the east, right? Then enter. So we saw this in the east. Now for the for the south, so we have sum is, right? The sum range, which is this total revenue, comma. Then the criteria range 1 is the electronics, right? The category. Then our criteria 1 is the what? The electronics, right? Then criteria range 2 is the region, comma. And the next criteria, which is the last one, is the what? The south. So if I should sum all of these, I should get if I should sum all of this, I should get my 27,000 using the sum if. So let's look at this. The total of everything that we have here. So equals to sum of everything we have here, right? Then enter. So you see now we have 27,000, exactly the same figure that we had there. So some ifs we further break it down in case, okay, now we just only calculated for electronics here to see. So now we are breaking it down to see which the sales made in each of this region under this category. Is it clear? So that's that for some ifs, right? So now for we can what I was trying to explain the other time about referencing. So in case I don't want to use I want to say for these other categories, I just need to change the name here from electronics to the next category, which should be beauty. Let's see, AUTY. Did you see it's changing automatically? So we have the same figure that we have here. But the reason I said Excel is case sensitive. Let's see if I should put small letter B. Oh, it actually worked. Okay, let's see for home category. Okay, so for home, you see, because I referenced this cell, not I did not pick my criteria from here, so I'm using this reference here. So for clothing, you see we're getting exactly the same figure, and for sports, well, so we are getting exactly the same figure. I only just need to change this here, right? And we'll see the sales made in each of this category based on this region. So let's go back to the electronics. So now the average means looking at the just the average of something like the is it mid now or the median? Think it's the median of something. So for average, just use the average function of the revenue. So let's look at the average of the revenue, right? So the average we are getting here is 90 point. Let me make this a coincidence, 90.20. And the reason is that reason we are getting the that is that average means, let's say our total sum is here, right? So how many, we have 1,000 products here. If we should divide this by 1,000, so we're going to get the average, obviously, which is what we got here, right? So that's just the average. So now for average if, it's more of like this electronics that we did here, this sum if that we did here. But in this case, we are looking for the average of all of this. We are looking for the average using a single criteria. Using what? A single criteria. Using a single criteria. We're looking for the average of all of this using a single criteria. So now, so we're going to look for the average of the electronics, of beauty, the home, the clothing, and the sports. So now let's get to it. So equals to average if, okay, let me just select it here. So the range, just like the sum if that we did here. So the range now will be the category, which is the electronics category, right? So what is our criteria? So I'm still using this electronics, right? Comma, then the sum range will be the total revenue here, right? Then enter. So we should get the average for our electronics category now. For beauty category, let's say the average for beauty category. So the average for beauty category, we still do the same thing using average if. So the range will be what? This category, right? Comma, then the criteria is what? Beauty. I'll select this criteria here, comma, then the average range will be our total revenue, right? Then enter. So we have the average for our beauty now. So now for home equals to average if, right? The range is the category. The criteria is what? Home, which is what we have here, comma, then the average range will be our revenue. So we have for this now. So for clothing, we'll do the same thing on for sport. There is a way to do it that I just need to autofill and automatically it completes for the rest, right? But this is not going to be correct because I need to do a little changes, so you might not understand. So let me just do it manually for each of them. So we are calculating average if, right? So the range is the category here, comma. Then what is the criteria? The next criteria we want to work on is clothing. Then select this, then enter, right? So now for the last one, which is a spot, so equals to average if, right? The range still this category, comma, then the criteria is spot, which is the last criteria that we have here, right? Spot, and I use the enter, so spot, comma, then the average range is the revenue, then enter. So now we have the average. We have the average for each of our category. So it's more of like same with the sum if based on one criteria. So we are using this based on one what criteria, based on one criteria. Now the average ifs, it's like the sum ifs. So we are using it based on what multiple criteria, based on multiple criteria. That is our average ifs, right? Based on multiple what criteria. So based on multiple criteria. Okay, now let's get to average if. So for this average if, I will look at the average. So I'm still going to use the electronics as well. So I will reference the electronics. I will look at the average based on electronics here using the same region. So we're using two criteria for the average ifs. So we are looking for the average of electronics sales made in the West, average of electronics made in the central, in the north, east, and south, right? So I'm going to use my reference cell here so that even when I change it, I get the average for the other categories here, right? Now, so I'm still going to stick to this, or let me just type a new reference here. So should I make a new unique? Okay, let's get our this in, or let me just copy this and paste it. Should work. All right. So we're looking for the average ifs for electronics, average of electronics in the west, in the central, in the north, east, and south. All right. Okay, now let's get to it. So using average ifs. So here we have two criteria, unlike the average if where we only did for one criteria. So we have multiple criteria, it's like the plural ifs, it's like the plural of if, right? So now let's do average ifs. So average ifs, right? So the average range now will be the total revenue, just like the sum range when we did the sum if. Alright, so I'll select the total revenue now, comma. So what is my criteria range one? My criteria range one, I want to use the category, right, comma, and the criteria will be what? Electronics that I'm using here as my reference cell. Then the criteria range two will be what? The region here, right? And the criteria two is my West here. So once when I press enter, I'll get the average. So this is telling me that in the West, the average sales made in the West is 134.92 $134.92. So I could just automate it to make my work easier by using this small dots that I have here, right? But let's just see it one by one, just for the sake of those that are just learning aggregate functions. So for this, so we'll do average ifs for electronics in the center. So the sum range as usual is what? This, right? Comma. The criteria range one is our what? Is our category, comma. Then the criteria one is our electronics that I'm using here, right? So the criteria range two is our what? Is our region, comma. Then the criteria two is what? The central, then enter. So in the in the central we got this. This is the average for the central. So I can just copy the code here and paste it, right? It will give me error, right? So I need to just do some changes here. So this 13 should be the electronics and in the node. Once I press enter, so it should give me. So instead of having to select, I'll just do the same thing. Copy or drag this down. We'll get error, right? So I just need to. So what I was trying to say the other time is I can just decide to lock this my electronics so it does not change, right? It does not change. So I'll use the same F4 to lock it, right? Does not change. So when I drag this down, okay. So when I drag this down, it's automatically do for the rest. So for electronics and in the south, you will see everything, every other thing remains the same, right? So we are done with the average ifs. And if I've done it manually, I'm still going to arrive at the same figure. So I think we should see if we look for the average of this, maybe we are going to get this figure, right? So let's try it. Average, let's say equals to the average of all of this. Okay, 165 point. What we got here is 165.68 and we got 164. So this might be due to some because we rounded this up to two decimal place, right? So might be due to some little changes. So the changes are usually just very minimal. They're always just very minimal, right? So this does not still mean it is not right. Now for count, remember if you want to say okay, how many products items do we have here? Remember I said we have 1000. So how did I know? So if you don't know, we can use counts to get that. So just how many products do we have? So equals to count. So I'll just come to my product here, right? Then Control Shift and down. So here we should have 1000. Okay, the count, yeah, the count only count numbers, right? It does not count text. That's why we get the zero. So now let's use this revenue equals to count. So let us use revenue to see what we are going to get. You see, the count does not work for letters. It only works for what? For figures. So the count A should work for both letters and both letters and numbers. So let's use the count A for the letters, right? So let us see. So I was using product name before. So we should have 1000. You see, so the count A can be used for letters, right? But the ordinary count does not count letters. It only count in figures, right? Now for count if, before I proceed with the count if, so in case you need to find the average for other categories, I just need to, I was using this as my reference before. So I just need to change this. So and it will automatically give me the average for the rest. So this is like a trick we use as data analysts to make our work faster during analysis, right? So sports, okay, sports. So you need to be sure that you're putting the right um, the right text exactly the way it is. So let's go back to electronics. So, alright, so now I'll just explain the count and the and the count A. The count only counts figures, while this can be used to count text. Now the count if we count based on what? Based on a one criteria, while the count ifs we count based on multiple criteria. So I'm just still going to use the same criteria, the same category that we have here. So at the end of the day, by the time we count, we should arrive at a total of 1000, right? So let me copy this and paste it here. So I want to say how many items do we have in electronics, or how many items falls in the electronics category, in same as the one in beauty category, same as the one in the home category, clothing and sport. So by the end of everything, after getting my calculation, the total, right, should give me 1000. So I think this should be here, not that, it should be here. So to help better. Okay, for this, we are using the count if. The criteria here is the electronics, yeah, count if. So the range now will be what? The criteria we want to count. The criteria we want to count from should be the category. So what is our category? What is our criteria? Which criteria do we want to see? Electronics, right? Then enter. So this is telling us that in all the sales, there's 167 items falls under the electronics criteria. So same for the beauty. Let's do count if the range will be what? This the electronics criteria, then my electronics category, then my criteria will be what? So beauty, then enter. So we have 232 in the beauty category. If I should say I want this to automate for others, so it should so how did I do that? Okay, let's do it one after the other. So equals to, oh sorry, okay, let me see if I can drag this down. Okay, I want it to automate, right? So it should automatically automate instead of me having to do it one after the other. And even if I decide to do it one after the other, let me copy this. So let me paste it as values here. Even if I want to do this myself, one after the other, I should still get this figure. So let's say equals to count if. So the range we want to select from is what? Our category, right? And the criteria is what? Which product or which category now, which is the home. You see, we got the same 196. If I do for the clothing, equals to count if, then the range is what? The electronics category, comma, and what's the criteria? The criteria will be the clothing. So we got the 192. Same with the sport, equals to count if, right? The range, not full stop, comma, then the criteria is what? The criteria is what? Is sports. So you see, we got the same figure. So you using automation even makes your work, easier, right? So you don't have to do it one after the other. Just automate it, and everything will be done for you automatically. So now let's see if this will sum up to 1000. So let's say total equals to sum of all of this, right? Enter, right? You see, so that's the work of COUNTIF. It will tell you each how many of the amount of products or whatever you want to select. It will help you to break it down. So what I did there is I know that in my the total product category that we have is what 1000, and I have these 5 categories. Each of the product in the 1000 items that we have falls under just 5 categories. Now I want to see, based on this category, how many items falls under electronics, same under beauty, under home, under clothing, and under sport. So COUNTIF has done the work for us. Now for COUNTIFs, just like the average if and the sum ifs that we have here, we can count based on multiple criteria. So I'm still going to use the same criteria that we used here. I'm going to use the same criteria that we use here for my COUNTIFs, right? And I'm going to use this electronics as well. So I want to see, so the total of electronics we had is 167, right? So I'm going to see, I want to further break it down that, okay, in this electronics, how many are sold in each region? How many what are sold in each region, right? Is it clear? So I want to say how many are sold in each region. And at the end of everything, right, we should have a total of 167. So I'm just going to use my reference cell, which is there, so that by the time I change the cell to another product, another category, we get the total. So let me put total here. So it should sum everything that we have here for me. So it is 0 now because there's nothing here. So I want to count how many electronics category or how many items in electronics are sold in the west, in the central, in the north, east, and south. So now let's go. We are using COUNTIFs. COUNTIFs, right? The criteria range one. The criteria range one is the criteria we are selecting our category from. Which should be what? Which should be what this, right? So what is my criteria one? The criteria one is what? Electronics, right? Now criteria range two will be my region. So I'll just pick my region, just like what we did in the AVERAGEIFS, right? And the criteria 2 will be what? This west here. So once I press enter, it's telling me that in the west, we sold only 30 products. In the west, we sold only 30 products. So if I should automate this down, I'll get 0 right, but I need to lock this my reference cell. So let's do it again because I'm using this cell. So I'll just use my F4 key. So once I automate this, it should automatically complete for other regions for me. So you see now for electronics, what we had here is 167. We still have the same 167 here. If I should change this to beauty, we should have 232. Change it to home, we should have 196. Clothing category should have 192. And in sports S, we should have 213, right? This is the work of automation, so you don't have to do them one by one. I could have done it here too, but it's just a way to could have done it in the sum and sum ifs, right? But it is just a way to show you how easy it is when you automate. Now for max will tell us the highest number, the the item with the highest sales, right? The item that has the highest sales in this category. in the highest sales in the revenue. So that's what, like the maximum, the highest. So let's say the highest amount that we have here. So I'll just select everything down here to here to the last one. So the highest amount we have here is what? $619.75 cent. So you don't expect me to start looking for the highest. What is the highest? Okay, we have 619 here. Let's see if we have another figure that is higher than 619, and we have 1,000 of them. No. So use the max function to see what is the highest, right? Same with this mean, but before we get to mean, let's do MAXIF. MAXIF is more, it's just like this other ifs that we have here, like the count ifs, the average ifs, and the sum ifs. So the MAXIFs will tell us using based on criteria what is sold, what is the highest sold in this category, what is the highest sold in this category, in this category, right? So I'm still going to use the same category, right, to see the highest sold in each of this category. So I'll use them equals to max ifs, right? So the max range will be the total revenue, right? Select everything from the first to the very last. So the next is to select criteria range one. The criteria range one, so we're only using based on one criteria, right? There is no max if. We only have max if, max ifs here. You can't use max if. So this max ifs can just search based on one criteria or based on multiple criteria. So it also does the function of max if, right? So you understand by the time we do for this now. So the maximum in the highest in electronics. So we've selected our max range. Now for our criteria range one will be our what, the category that we're working on. Then the criteria one will be what? Will be what? This electronics. So enter. There's something wrong with my Excel function. Okay. So I was selecting electronics, but it went to the next cell and picked the next cell. So I'll just select this for this, right? I'll just select the electronics category now here, then enter. So apparently in the electronics category, that's where we have the ISO. I think I saw 619 somewhere now. So let's see where this falls. Yeah, it's under electronics. You can see here. The highest that we saw now was then under electronics, right? And it was even in the eastern region. So let's see if it will work for by the time we start doing MAXIFS. So let me automate this so I don't have to do for the rest, right? I just have to drag it down. So this will help me see the maximum in other words, in other categories. So for now, let's see for this year. So let us see MAXIFS, the maximum sold in each of the region based on our category. So we can use the MAXIFS because for MAXIFS you can use just either one criteria or two or more criteria, right? So MAXIFS, right? The max range will be our what? Our total revenue, right? Then the criteria range one, I'm using the category, the criteria one is our what? Is our reference cell here, which should be the electronics, right? The criteria range two would be the regions, right? So I want to see the highest sold or the highest sold in each of the region, and the criteria 2 will be what? The West. So remember, for this, the highest in the electronics here is what? 619.75, right? So, and according to my sheet here, 619.75, I saw it somewhere. I saw it somewhere. Yeah, this is it. So it is telling me that this was sold in the East. The highest was sold in the East. So let's see if we are going to get it. So as usual, let me lock my reference cell so it does not move to the next one. So I'll use my F4 key to lock it, or you can just type your $sign before the letter and another $sign before the number. So let's see if we're going to get the yes, we got it. The highest here is in the East, and it is telling me that it is in the East here. So if I change this to the next category, let's say beauty. So it should tell me, so the highest was sold in the West for beauty category. If I change this to home, the maximum was sold in the North, right? If I change this to clothing, the maximum was sold where? In the Central. And if I change this to sports, the maximum was sold where? In the East as well. So same with the now to the mean, just like the max, the mean is will tell us the lowest figure, the lowest figure sold. So let's see. So for mean equals to, just select your revenue. So for mean, the lowest is 6.43, right? The lowest is $6.43, $6.43. That's the lowest. So for MINIFS, it is like the MAXIF that we did here. MINIFS will help us see the lowest sold in each of this category. So I'm just going to use the same category now. So equals to MINIFS, right? So the mean range will be our revenue here, right? Comma. Then the criteria range 1 will be our category, because we are looking at the lowest sold in each of the categories. So and remember to select the fastest way, instead of having to scroll all the way down, just select the first one, then Control Shift and the down arrow to help you select everything. Alright, so selected that, then comma, then the criteria 1 is what? Our electronics, then enter. So this is telling me that in electronics, the lowest that was sold, let me cover this too. So the lowest that was sold in electronics was what? 20.37. So if I should automate this, just double click or drag it down. It's telling me that, okay, for the minimum value that we had here was sold in the beauty category, right? So if I want to see which region in the beauty category do we have this lowest, just like what we did in the MAXIF, where we see that the highest here, which is the highest amount that we had there, was sold in electronics under the East region. So if I want to see same for the what? Same for the minimum, right? I just have to see, okay, what we have here, the minimum we have here is $6.43, but it is under what? The beauty category. So I want to see which region we had that we made that sale. So I'll just use my MINIFS, right? So the minimum range will be where? Total revenue, right? Comma. Then the criteria range 1 will be, I'll use my category, comma, then my criteria 1 I'm going to use my reference cell. So we still use the same reference cell here, right? Comma, but I'm still going to lock it later, but let's finish this selection. The criteria range 2 will be the region, right? And the criteria 2 would be what? All of this. No, would be just the one selection, should be this one that I selected, then enter. So this is telling me that in the electronics in the West, the minimum sold the in the West the minimum sold was 24.59 cents. But if I want to see where this minimum was sold in each of these, if I want to see which region we sold this minimum, we'll just let me log this again. I'll log this, right. You can as well just type it yourself. Just type the $sign, then $sign, then enter. So if I want to see which region we add this 20.37, so we add the lowest under electronics in the East. Remember, the lowest that we sold was 6.43, but in the beauty category. So if I want to see which region this was sold, I just have to change this to beauty, and it will tell me 6.43. It was sold in the South, right? If I want to see for home, where we add the lowest, so we add it in the North, 9.81. For clothing, we add it what? In the South here, and for sports, we add it where 8.19. We add it here in the East. So these are some of the aggregate functions that helps in our analysis as a data analyst, right? So if you enjoyed this, kindly like, share, and subscribe to the channel so that when I upload a new video, you will be one of the first that will be notified, and you can follow up with my video. See you in the next one.